And since the back is a little loose and the front is fairly snug, I'm just going to hold this here and I'm going to lightly take a rubber mallet and tap this back until I just touch off that wheel. And then I'm going to rotate back to the front and see if we've changed on the front. And it looks like I actually got it first try. I cannot believe it. Actually, I need to take that in a little further. There we go. Rotate back to the front. And that's it. Now I know now, based on that reference mark I made, this miter slot is an equal distance on the front and the back. So I know I'm traveling parallel to that wheel. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and lock the trunnions and tighten them all the way up. Just a little bit on the back, a little bit on the front, until I'm satisfied. There we go. And there we go. Now it may be a little snug now. There's no oil in here or anything to help lubricate it, but I'm going to go ahead and turn these off one turn and see if I can actually grab this and adjust it. And look at that. Look at how easy that is to adjust. Now it will be a little bit better, and actually I'm going to make that a little bit better. It's tight, not quite as tight as it was. So at this point what I'm going to do is go ahead and give you another option to let you know how you can readjust. I'm going to set my table back to 0 using my square. I'm going to lock down the front trunnion. I'm going to lock down the rear trunnion. Now what I'm going to do is loosen the back trunnion nut. Leave the front one tight. I'm going to back this off maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn. I'm going to loosen the back nut as said. I'm going to hit that table forward to make a small gap in there to see if we can loosen the trunnions up just a little bit. This may not be necessary after I remove the paint on the side and put a little oil on there, but for this purpose we're going to go ahead and go through with this just to see how things turn out. Just a little tap will do. Now since I did loosen this up, I need to go back and double check that the table slot is still where it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just tighten that up on the back. I'm hoping that things are still where they need to be. And I actually still have the same measurement on the front. And I'm using my Sharpie mark. And I am a little bit out on the back. So I am going to loosen this up a little. I'm going to try to massage it over there without loosening that front nut. I'm not going to get too aggressive with it. I don't want to break any castings. And I was able to make that happen without loosening the front. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this back in. And now we'll loosen up the trunnion bolts and see if it's any different. And it certainly is a little bit better. Now you can see it's not perfect. You do have to work it just a little bit at this stage, but it is doable. And it is tons better than when it came out of the box. What I did, I was speaking about the run out in the back plates. I kind of switched gears. I told you I was going to work on the tables, but I changed my mind and went ahead and to go further into the grinder. I took one of the back plates off, or actually both of them rather, and here is one of the back plates right here. And what I did, this is an arbor I turned on the lathe, and I slid the back plate on it. I put in a bolt to hold it, and I went ahead and trued up the front surface. Now when I measured the run out on the grinder itself, it was probably about 10 thousandths on one side and maybe 6 thousandths on the other, which doesn't really matter all that much if you're using a stone that you can dress, because that will take any of the run out. But if you are going to use a diamond wheel or a CBN wheel, as I stated earlier, you need as little run out as possible in these, or when you're trying to grind, you'll be bouncing off the wheel and you'll really only be catching in one part of the wheel as you grind. So I wanted to bring you guys up to speed and let you know what I'm going to end up doing, and which I've already done. I'm kind of backing up here so I could show you how to take the wheels off and how to take the grinder and what we were going to do. Now when I did turn it on the arbor, clearly I had 0 run out because it was all concentric to the lathe axis. But when I did put it back on, I still had about 5 thousandths run out in it on one side, and I really didn't get too far into checking the other. Now I did test the spindle to see if the spindle had any run out, and they did not. The spindles actually run with no detectable run out on a 1,000th scale indicator. So that led me to believe the issue has to be in here. Now when this nut is tightened up, this is a coarse thread nut, and it could be putting more pressure on one side, which is actually cocking that over to one side. There are also some spacers behind here you'll see in a moment that are a little loose to the shaft, so depending on their orientation and how everything was locked down and tightened up, it kind of introduced some run out that I was trying to get away from. So what I ended up doing, and what I'm going to show you how I did it and kind of give you a setup on how I did it, was I actually took the motor apart, mounted everything, locked it down to the shaft, and put the motor shaft and everything up in the lathe, spun it in between centers, and turned it all true. So to give you an idea on how to take it apart, the first thing you want to do clearly is move your water trays and your tables, and you're going to find a nut here underneath the rubber cap once you remove it. Now the first thing you wanted to do is, there are some stepped bolts that are in here holding these wheels. Go ahead and take those out. There will be 4 of them. I have most of mine out just to kind of speed the process up so you can see what's going on, and then go ahead and pull off your grinding wheel. Now with that being taken off, most grinders have a left-handed nut and a right-handed nut. The left-handed nut being on the left side of the grinder, so when it's turning towards you, the nut would actually tighten up instead of loosen off. I believe I got that right. These particular ones, since they run in forward and reverse, it would make no difference to have one on there. So these are both right-handed threads, so don't break your neck trying to get that off, or you might end up doing some damage. Now the other question here is, how do you keep this from spinning in order to get that off? Well, yes, you can use 2 12-inch crescent wrenches or spanners for the English folks out there, and you will get on one, get on the other, but when you loose it, inevitably only one's going to come loose. So what I did to remedy that was just take a piece of bar stock here, and you can note that I drilled 2 holes in it. Mine was kind of a wide piece, maybe an inch, inch and a quarter, so I did have to cut a little V here. Now these diameter of these holes allow those step bolts to go ahead and fit all the way down in there, if you can see. And basically what you'll do with this, if you can actually see it, you'll go ahead and drill those 2 holes. I believe it was 2 1/4 inches apart by a rough measurement. You'll put one here, and that will give you the leverage you need to counteract loosening up this nut. So to take this out of the way,